Hello and welcome back to the GT Cup Championship 2023 for the last race of the season here at Snetterton circuit. There's been so much action all throughout this weekend and lots of action in that sprint race, wasn't there, Piers?
Yeah, we've got the final race coming up, but the penultimate race of the season, the sprint race this morning, it was a good one. One of the better ones this season, especially in Group GTH. It was nose to tail, second down to sixth for the whole race, close for second and third also in Group GT3. So, yeah, and there was some drama in GTC as well. So a good final sprint race of the season. We've still got another pit stop race, and yesterday's pit stop race was interesting even without the Power Cup.
Yeah, there's going to be so much action for the next race. But also, Piers, I've dressed more appropriately now. I was wearing a beanie and lots of jumpers beforehand, but the weather is scorching. So in terms of a sprint race, we have chatted about how the weather might affect that race. I personally haven't seen too much effect on the race in terms of temperature. Do you think we might see that play out in the longer pit stop endurance race?
Well, of course, it's the afternoon now. The sun has definitely come out. It's definitely warmed up. I'm in shorts and T-shirt, which only happens when it's above a certain temperature because I'm normally pretty chilly. But yeah, I mean, the Snetterton is very hard in the front left tyre especially, and with the track temperature going up, that front left tyre might degrade slightly quicker. The teams will be mitigating that with a little bit with the tyre pressures. They might go down a little bit, which might mean they're a bit more skittish at the start. But I think largely similar to yesterday, a little bit less wind, so the car will feel slightly different for a lot of the drivers. But we saw yesterday, we mentioned a number of times, pit stop race, different pit stop times, traffic. We even saw it in the sprint race just then. There's a lot going on, and it will be hopefully a good end to the season.
Well, who knows what's going to happen, because like we've said, it's a very, very tricky technical track. So why don't we take a look at the track guide voiced by Mark Werrell.
So let's have a look at the Snetterton 300 then, off the start-finish line and through the first corner at Ritchie's. The heavy braking into the hairpin at Wilson, and then from there, the left-hander at Palmer. That completes the first sector. You then head through Agostini and the kink at Hamilton, and then on towards Oggies and the critical corner at Williams that brings you all the way down the Bentley Straight. The end of sector 2 is just under the bridge before Brundle and Nelson, and then it's through the bomb hole and the tricky, never-ending right-hander at Coram. The final corner is Murray's, up the centre straight and over the start-finish line. That's a lap of the Snetterton 300 circuit. It's just under 3 miles long. It's 2.969 miles long. It's a former RAF base and therefore it's fairly flat. It only changes 9 metres in elevation over the lap. It's tight, it's tricky, it's a challenging circuit. It's got 12 turns, and that is the Snetterton 300.
It's great to see where we're racing here at Snetterton on the 300 circuit, and there's been some great racing this weekend, especially in that sprint race, Piers. There was so much going on, and congratulations to Tom Empson, who took that win, and in Group GT3 as well. He's partnered with Ian Loggy. I think we should speak about Group GTH because there was so much going on there, wasn't there, Piers? And lots of traffic. People were quite careful to weave through, not ruin anyone else's races. Congratulations to Stephen Walton, who took that win for Group GTH. So now they have won the championship standings for Group GTH, but there was so much going on there, Piers.
Yeah, and Chris Hart, of course, because the team of them, Chris Hart and Simon Walton, great drive all season. They've been there or thereabouts the whole year. They were there or thereabouts in that race, finishing second. Sai Sanjay took a dominant victory. Great win in that McLaren Artura, which is clearly working very well. But yeah, it was a fight. We saw it in the race, didn't we? Mark and I were commentating on the second down to sixth for the whole race was nose to tail. Ed Bridle did a good drive. He went from sixth place, made up a couple of positions, got forced a little wide as the GT3s made their way through. Dawson just couldn't quite find a way past Walton for most of the race. He tried inside, he tried outside, he tried in the middle sector, the first sector. Couldn't quite get it done. It was a great drive from Simon Walton, and also showed the quality that he showed all year and why they are champions with Chris Hart.
I know, it was quite tricky for them. You can see after we caught up with them at the end of the race, they were very physically out of it. It was so demanding for them, especially at a track like this. But Group GT3 as well, there was a little bit of a bump, wasn't there, between Sasha Kakad and Simon Orange, because they're so competitive. They want to stay at the top. Obviously, Hugo Cook and Sasha Kakad have took the win for Group GT3, but Simon Orange wants to push. Why does he want to push as well? They're fighting for the team standings. Only a few points separating Orange Racing and Morpheus Racing. So that'll be one to watch in the next race.
Yeah, I think it's 10.5 points going into final race of the season, with Orange Racing powered by JMH in the lead and Morpheus just behind. So it's advantage JMH, but if anything goes wrong for any of their leading or front-running cars, Morpheus could be there to sneak that off them. But yeah, great race between the GT3s. We saw Simon Orange right at the back of Sasha Checkered for a lot of the race. Slight contact in an early part of the race that we didn't see because it wasn't caught on camera, but it meant that the rear bodywork of the Audi R8 was rubbing on the rear tyre, causing a bit of smoke. But luckily for Sasha Checkered, it didn't cause any damage, lasting damage to that tyre. It sort of sorted itself out and he could carry on and finished on the road in second place.
And Group GTC as well, their peers. Charlotte Gilbert was giving it absolutely everything. A few mistakes here and there. Like we say though, if you go into that corner and you brake too hard, it wasn't a clean exit for her, unfortunately. There was a few little oversteers, wasn't there for her race, but she was putting a battle up for Graham and Dan DeZille in the Ferrari, and Dan took the win there, so that was another great one for them.
Yeah, Group GTC was interesting. Not a huge amount of cars this weekend, but Dan and Graham DeZille and Charlotte Gilbert this weekend have been very close. Charlotte Gilbert was pole in the class, so starting on the inside. Dan DeZille dropped, slotted in behind on lap 1, but then a small mistake through Oggies on the first lap for Charlotte Gilbert meant she ran wide. Dan got past with a nice block pass. And then later in the race, unfortunately, Charlotte made a small mistake, had a little spin, but no damage done to the car, came home in second place. Although she is already champion, so she's just out there trying to do as well as she can. But she'll be looking to try and go one better in the pit stop race this afternoon as Dan and Graham work together to try and get another win this weekend.
Yeah, they'll be sharing that drive. Well, Piers, I think it's come to the end of the season, which is so sad, but I think we should catch up with some more drivers. So let's go chat to the grid. So it's great to catch up with you both. And Charlotte, let's talk about your season as a whole. You've had a few driver changes, haven't you? Does that affect you when you're going out into a race, or does it not even affect at all when you're going out in that car?
It can do, and it's kind of how we've always operated, really, is obviously to start the season I was racing with Warren, my husband, but it was only meant to be temporary until we could get another driver, and then it's always been a bit of fill-in. And then we were sort of lucky to stumble across Gilbert Yates, who entered the championship, but obviously there was an issue with his car, and then he came, because we were leading GTC at the time, he came and jumped on board with my car in order to try and win the championship as well, because we were still in with a chance to win the championship. So it's been a bit hit and miss, and then of course at the finale with Sam Neary. So yeah, really good.
Yes, so how did that come about then? Did you think, I need a new driver, I know who to go for instantly?
Yeah, it was Gilbert Yates has had to go away, so he's in America on business, so I was stuck again co-driverless, and somebody just happened to say, well, Sam Neary's in the country, he's free this weekend, and so I talked Warren and say, right, let's get Sam in the car, because I've never had the experience of having a pro driver before. I've never had that input. So Gilbert Yates was very quick, but we didn't really have a lot of data to work with, and obviously Sam is really rapid, so I've had his information, his data to look at and see how his differs to mine, which is, you know, quite substantial considering his experience as well. But yes, it's been really a massive learning experience for me this weekend.
Yeah, then how have you found it, Sam? Obviously racing with Charlotte, like Charlotte's mentioned, you got lots of racing experience. How is it then driving, not with a professional, because you're coaching more, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. It's been an interesting weekend. You know, we've had really good fun though, and so far Charlotte's been learning. It's been a completely new car for her basically, with the changes I've made to make the car quicker. It's been completely polar opposite to what she's used to. But you know, she's doing really well. The lap times are really close to mine, so that's all we can ask for. You look at British GT, the AMs are always 2 seconds off the pros, and that's a really good AM. So Charlotte's doing really well, and I think a couple more test sessions and a few more races, she'll be really close. So she's doing really well.
Yeah, you are doing really well, Charlotte, and obviously the win for Group GTC, so that must feel great.
Yeah, so we kind of knew that we'd got it in the bag, and I think part of the reason I wanted to get Sam on board for this race was because I've been used to driving this car as it is for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a safe setting, and I think I've squeezed as much as I could out of the way that it was set up. And when Sam got in it, it was like nothing like for a pro driver to get in the car, he went much more aggressively on the setup, and it was quite a big shock for me. It was a big change. The car handled completely differently, which I'm still getting used to. But we've done various other changes, and it's been a really good experience for me because I've never gone that far with setup change, so it's been a really good experience, and I'm actually doing surprisingly well actually, and I've learned a huge amount changing technique and what I'm doing, and I've just learned a whole lot more this weekend. So yeah,
with the whole different setup change, you would have thought maybe it would have really affected your race, but you're doing amazing, honestly, Charlotte. Great driver lineup, and hope to see you again in the GT Cup Championship next year or any other racing series that we see you in. So thank you both for chatting with me today.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
We're down at the Orange Racing powered by JMH garage. Guys, unfortunately the GT3 Group Championship is no longer within reach. Second is very much on the cards, but the Team Championship for Orange Racing powered by JMH is very much still there for the taking. 10.5 points in the lead ahead of Morpheus Racing as it stands. What can you do to give yourself the best chance of taking the victory?
Well, we've got to score 34 points. Even if we win our race, which we hope to do today, we only get 18 points because of the ruling, because we've not got the full entry, and the 4 cars are in it to a not scoring. So if we win, we can get 18. We rely on our teammates to get a third, come behind us to get 15. That's 33. And we're banging on some new boots for Marcus in the Lambo, so hopefully we got the fastest lap, which we've calculated that means we should win by half a point, assuming Morpheus get the full 44.
Yeah, because all you can do is control what you can control, I suppose.
Yeah.
Tom, you were rapid yesterday. You hoping for the same again today?
Yeah, absolutely. The car was a bit off yesterday, to be honest. You know, we were further off the Audi than we'd like to be, and it didn't feel very nice to drive. But the team have gone total change overnight. You know, worked really hard, changed loads of setup, and I went out and did a lap this morning, and the car feels totally different today.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
And also that's, I suppose, showing the value of JMH, the job they've done. That's why you're in the position you are in the Team Championship, because well, tell us about how, there's a lot of work goes on behind the scenes. They don't just rock up and get the car and off it goes, does it?
No, not at all. I mean, the guys work so hard. They're awesome, the guys in the team. Constantly looking to better yourself, constantly working to make the car better, and doing an awesome job.
And also, not only are they good at getting a fast racing car underneath you, but also there's a great team camaraderie. I know you guys, once the racing stops, you like to have a good time as well. And I assume if you win the Team Championship, there'll be a few celebrations this evening.
Well, either way, I'm sure there'll be some celebration. So yeah, we're definitely a good time team, that's for sure. But yeah, the lads have been brilliant, and we've had a bad season this year. I smashed it up in the first race at Donington, so we missed 4 races, and then won a race at the second meeting at Donington. But I hit poor Campbell up the arse and got excluded. So we've missed out on 5 races this season, which is why Hugo and Sasha have won it. But with a fantastic team behind us, they've really got the car better than it was. So we're hoping to be on the pace today, and hoping to get our 34 points.
That's all you can do. And who's going to be starting the final race of the season then?
Simon will start, and then I'm jumping in at the pit stop.
Brilliant. So we look forward to seeing how that gets on. Guys, you've had a great season so far. Hopefully it ends on a high for you. We'll come and say hello. We'll come and get a word from you if you are the champions, and if you're not, then it would have been a great season nonetheless. So well done.
Ignore us, yeah?
No, we won't ignore you. Don't worry. Don't worry.
You should expect. I should hope to be better in the start of this race, because I think it's the first time this season I've been given new tyres. Tom's not been able to think of a reason why he should have them. So
not yet.
Not yet.
I'm still working on it.
Unless it changes between now and the race.
We'll keep an eye on that. Simon, Tom, thank you so much.
Cheers.
Good luck.
Thanks, Ian.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers. Amber, I think you found someone else to chat to.
Alana, it's so great to have you with me. You've been doing great at this track, especially because you've not raced here before, but how have you found it?
It's been really fun. To be honest, on our practice day, I found pace a lot quicker than I expected, which made me a little bit greedy. I want more. But yeah, I figured it out pretty quickly, and now we're getting down to chipping away a little bit more. Really enjoying it. It's a really technical track that you make one little mistake and it can bite you for the rest of the lap. But it's nice because it's flat. I'm a little bit more brave to push things. I'm not as scared that I'm going to get thrown out like at Donington. But yeah, it's been a great weekend so far. Really, really enjoying this car. Donington was my first time ever driving a GT4 car, and the Lotus has been so good for my confidence. I was really starting to trust it, started trusting it a little too much, and asked the tires for a little bit more than they were willing to give, but we're coming back. My teammate did amazing in the sprint race today. We're not at the top of the field yet, but we're both rookies, so we're pretty pleased that we're not at least getting left behind.
Yeah, I don't think you can expect to be right at the front, can you? You've not raced at these tracks before, and you've not raced in these cars before, so you're doing amazing despite that. So let's talk about that little spin. There was a spin. The dominant theme of this weekend is everyone is pushing. But the problem is when you push, there's a little bit more room for mistakes, isn't there? So is that what happened yesterday?
Yeah, so I was feeling really good. Like every session I went out, I found more time. Like my qualifying, every single lap was green, green, green. So I just kept pushing and pushing. And then I took a pass. It was a great pass, feeling good. Everyone was cheering. And then I think I just braked a little too late and had to hold on to the brake longer than I should have. So turning and brakes at the same time, you go around. So I took a little bit of a knock to the confidence, but we're rebuilding, and now I'm just playing it a little more safe. But it's all part of the learning curve. You know, learning's not linear, and I probably learn more by making mistakes than being perfect all the time.
Well, exactly. And speaking of learning, your dad was telling me that you are very keen to go over that data to improve lap by lap each time you go out there. So where's this come from? You're just so keen to just improve and just do better for the team?
Yeah, I don't know. I found like I'm kind of better at this than I expected some days, and it just makes me so much more motivated to keep improving as quickly as possible. Like when I go out every session and have improvement, there's just nothing better. Like I can't expect to be running with the top of the pack, but at least continuing to improve the whole time is great. We've got such an awesome team here. Like I learn so much when I'm running with this team because we can find all of these little things to work on each session. I have one tangible thing that I go and fix, and I find more time. So yeah, it's been awesome. I'm just trying to get as good as I can, as quick as I can.
Well, it's definitely showing out on track. And what are the next steps for you then? Where can we see you next? Are there any plans in the pipelines?
So my last race of the season, I'm actually heading to Laguna Seca, and I'm really excited about that. Yeah, so there's a team that I race with back home. It's a fully electric car. It's called the Scalar Performance SCR1. And yeah, we're taking it out to Laguna Seca for one last round of the year. And then we're just planning. We're figuring out what happens next year. I would love to do a full season of GT Cup because I have really enjoyed these races, but we'll see. We all know that this sport is changing all the time, so it really depends on what opportunities come up.
Well, I hope to see you back in the GT Cup next year. Fingers crossed for you, but safe travels, and thank you so much for chatting with me. We're about to head into the last race of the 2023 season, which is the endurance race, and there's so much to unpack from this race, Piers. I don't know who to watch, to be honest. They're all super competitive. I think they're all going to push and give it their all. But on pole is Ian Logie and Thomas Empson.
Yes, they were rapid in race number 1. Of course, Tom Empson drove away from the field, convincingly winning by over 15 seconds in the end. So they'll be trying to do the same again. But I think they've got a slightly longer pit stop, potentially, than some of the others. But also you've got the JMH McLaren, who yesterday was right up there as well. And they're gunning for the Teams Championship, racing against Morpheus Racing, who are, of course, in Group GTH. And Morpheus will be doing all they can to try and overturn that 10.5 point deficit. I believe it's 10.5 points, so Mark will correct me if I'm wrong, for the lead of the Teams Championship. So, yeah, still championships to be decided.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning that we won't be having the Mosler with us for the last race. There's always some mechanical issue with the Mosler, so unfortunate for them. But it's great that they were here and they made it to the last race of the season. They got it out for a few and they brought some victories, so I'm sure the whole Short family will be very proud. Just unfortunate for them as we head into the last race. Also, we have Marcus Clutton back with us for the last few races, and he used to race with Enduro Motorsport in this season, but now he has joined Orange Racing for the last few races, sharing that Lamborghini with Patrick Collins.
Yes, that Lamborghini, that is going to be pretty quick. I hear that they're going to give him Marcus Clutton some new tyres, see how fast he can go at the end of the second part of this race. So I'll be looking forward to seeing the pace of that car, because we know Marcus Clutton doesn't hang about, does he? No,
he doesn't. Super fast, and that's why it's very competitive when they're all out there. Like I said, they're battling with Paul Bailey, even though they're not in the same group. It's interesting to watch. Super quick driver that he is. But it's worth mentioning GTH again, Piers, because although the overall group championship standings have been decided by Morpheus Racing with Stephen Walton and Chris Hart,
yes,
there's still a lot of competitive racing within that group.
Yeah, I mean, we saw race 1 this morning. Again, we've seen so many times this year, Group GTH, nose-to-tail racing for all the way down the field. We saw 2nd through to 6th place was pretty much nose-to-tail for the whole race. Hopefully we can get the same again, because it was good watching, and Dawson will be trying to go one more. But look, if you look at catch the brakes smoking on the Ferrari there, that's quite interesting to see. Dan Dezilla's clearly been working those brakes nice and hard to get those tyres up to temperature, potentially taking some new tyres at the start of this pit stop race, 50 minutes of course, so he will have been working those brakes hard, which is why they're smoking.
And I actually saw a few of the engineers and the team members going up and they're taking the temperature of the track. So that's what they do obviously before each race to ensure optimum tyre temperature, or explain that, Piers.
I mean, I'm not I wouldn't say I'm an expert. I haven't been a race engineer, employed as a race engineer, but it's a routine thing that teams will do. They'll get a probe and poke it in the ground, find out what temperature the circuit is, because then they can at the end of the race, they can take the tyre pressures and get the feedback from the driver, and the driver will say, oh, the tyres went off too soon, or no, they came on too late, or they went away from me, and then they can use the feedback and the temperature to make better informed decisions next time out, because even though they're racing, they're still learning all the while.
Yeah, and it's quite nice when the pros come out to play for the second half of the race, and we caught up with Seb Morris just before, didn't we? And he said he's very eager to get out there. Charles has been doing great, a few mistakes that we mentioned earlier, but because they're pushing so much. But he claims to me that he's going to try and take the win for Group GTH for this race, so that'll be interesting if they achieve that. But it's a very fast car, and there's a few little cosmetic damages on the car, isn't there?
Yeah, from the race we saw earlier, you know, the Ram Racing Mercedes tried to get past so many times, getting right up the back of the Morpheus AMG, and a few little touches here and there just damaged the light and the little dive planes, which help with the front downforce. Nothing too bad. Not too bad, but they'll be out again, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's worth trying to catch a word with Simon Orange here, starting off the race. How are you feeling ahead of this race, Simon?
Yeah, feeling pretty good. Just hopefully I can follow Ian for a few laps and we can build a bit of a lead, and then we'll go from there.
And then obviously you're still pushing for the team standings, aren't you? So is that playing on your mind?
No, we've just got to get 34 points, so that's what we're out for. I'm going to try and win this race, and hope Pat and Marcus do well.
Okay, Fab, good luck for this race, Simon. I think Piers has caught up with Mr. Chris Haynes.
Yes, we've got series coordinator, organiser, owner, I don't know what's called. Chris, last race of the season, it's been a really, really good year. I've enjoyed it, I hope you have too. Sum up the year and what you hope for the last race?
Well, there's a question. Sum up the year and the last race. Well, it's the last race of the season. Very exciting. Down to the wire, lots of fast cars, beautiful Snetterton, it's dry. Let's see what happens. I mean, it's been a roller coaster year. Next year is already looking very strong. GTH, we've got lots of new cars coming out to play. We're reviewing. I've been spending the whole weekend talking to all the teams and drivers and trying to gauge. You know, we listen to our clients. We don't just tell them what we want. We're listening to what they're telling us. So yeah, I'm really excited about next year already. It feels a bit sad, isn't it? It's the end of the season.
I know.
But I'm sure my children are looking forward to me coming home.
It's a very well organised series, and so well organised. You even managed to get some last bit of summer sun for the last race weekend of the year.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's October, and I'm wearing this jumper, thinking, "Oh, what a mistake." Never mind.
But anyway,
Chris, I have to ask one last question. Favourite car? You never answer. You never answers. Anyway, we need to get off the grid now, so I am going to throw you back over to Mark to enjoy this race.
And yes, great to hear from not just the drivers, also Chris Haynes down there on the grid. And because he can't give a favourite car, they're all his customers, they're all his favourites. So the grid is being cleared of the final personnel and team members, and we will very shortly be starting our last race, round 26 of the 2023 GT Cup Championship. In the race earlier on today, we saw a win in Group GTH for the number 13 car, which I alluded to as being Callum Davies throughout the race. I apologise for that. Sai Sanjay was the starting driver. That was my mistake. So apologies to that, because I know there's been plenty of interest in Sai and his progress here at Snetterton over in his native country of India. So Sai Sanjay will be taking over that car for part 2 of the race, and let's hope that he has another belter of a drive, because he certainly impressed earlier on. So the cars head off on their final formation lap. We can guide you through the grid, and I'll give you the success seconds and the time penalties, and i.e. the amount of time that every car has to remain stationary in the pits, because it does vary from car to car and driver to driver. Ian Logie starts from pole position in the McLaren. That will spend 80 seconds in the pit lane, and alongside is Simon Orange in a McLaren, but he'll be stationary for 90 come the pit stops. Row 2 of the grid is the Audi, started by Sasha Kakad. That will have 100 seconds in the pit stop, and then alongside will be the Dan Dazeal driven Ferrari, which will have 80 seconds in the pit stop. As we move on to row 3 of the grid, Charlotte Gilbert starts, 100 seconds for the Lamborghini, and alongside is Patrick Collins, who will have to remain stationary for 85 seconds before Marcus Clutton can make his way down the pit lane. Next up is Paul Bailey, 100 seconds when he gives way to James Dorlin, and alongside will be Callum Davies at the wheel of the leading car in Group GTH on the grid. That will remain stationary for 100 seconds before Sai Sanjay can take over. As we move on to row number 5 of the grid, David Franklin, 80 seconds for that car in the pit lane, and alongside is Phil Cart, who will have 85 seconds to spend before the pro Mikey Broadhurst can jump on board. And then next up, which is row number 6, is John Curry, 100 seconds in the pit lane, and alongside is Charles Dawson, who will have 85 seconds in the pit lane. As we move on to row number 7 of the grid, it's car number 69. Stephen Walton starts, only 60 seconds in the pit for that car. Alongside is Tim Docker, who will have 90 seconds to remain stationary before Alex Walker jumps on board. And then the final row of the grid, Alana Carter starts, 80 seconds in the pit lane for the 24/7 Motorsport Lotus. And alongside is Chris Murphy, who will have 70 seconds to spend in the pit lane in the Aston Martin that goes off the tail end of the field. So that gives you the starting drivers. It doesn't, though, tell you as to how the pit stops work today, because they work differently today than they did yesterday. Today, it's the cars in Group GTH that will pit first. So their pit window opens in this 50-minute race between the 24th and the 29th minute of the race. And those cars that are in Group GTO, Group GT3 and Group GTC pit later today. They were the first to pit yesterday, they're the second to pit today. Their pit window opens between the 29th and the 35th minute of the race, between the 29th and the 35th minute of this 50-minute race. So 10.5 points, just to confirm, do separate Orange Racing powered by JMH from Morpheus Racing in the team's championship. So ideally 34 points would be enough. As we've heard from Simon Orange, they've all been busy working away on their own Excel spreadsheets, all of the teams, to try and understand it. It's a very complex set of point scoring systems that happen in the team's championship in GT Cup, ever more so with some cars scoring full points this weekend, others scoring less. But that is the only championship that now is not settled. Every other championship, the overall championship and all of the individual group championships are sorted. Who's going to be the team's champion for this year? Well, we'll find out shortly as to whether JMH might lift it for the 3rd year on the trot and 5th year in total. So here we go, Ian Logie in the Dayglow McLaren on the front row of the grid for the final time. We go racing in 2023. Round 26 of GT Cup is go, and it's a good start from Ian Logie, the Scotsman, from pole position, charges his way down towards Ritchie's for the first time. There's been some contact further back, and I'm afraid that's Stephen Walton that's already had a problem, and that surely now means that Morpheus Racing are going to stand very little chance of securing the team's title. That is not at all what they wanted in the early stages. I'm not sure what happened. I did see rubber disappearing and then damage to the car. So whether there was contact and whether that involved the number 91 car, we will have to wait and see, because David Franklin is also out of the car by the look of things. But David Franklin was a full 2 rows ahead of Stephen Walton, and as you can see, our ever fantastic and efficient marshals here at Snetterton are just leaping over the wall to pick up small bits of debris that will have been deposited on the circuit there, just making sure they're out of harm's way, and therefore cars can't pick up punctures. But the race continues, and it is Ian Logie that leads the way at the moment from Simon Orange there in 2nd position. And as they then feed their way round through Williams, Sasha Kakad in 3rd place. Dan Dazeal leads Group GTC in the early stages, and leading Group GTH in the early stages is the number 13 McLaren Artura, which is going to be Callum Davies. So down the Bentley Straight, they feed their way. Ian Logie out front and leading the way, but Simon Orange sticking with the task in hand at the moment, which means that he's right on the coattails of the car that leads overall, pushing as hard as he possibly can. You see everybody else just feeding their way round through the circuit. Already 2 cars, though, having retired, with the incident for Stephen Walton and David Franklin. Oh, Chris Murphy very sideways there as he came on cold tyres round through the bomb hole. You can see the tail end of the Aston Martin breaking away, whilst David Frankland is busy chatting to the marshals on the exit of Ritchie's at the moment, with the car parked right up against where the cornfield is. And that at the moment is being covered by localised yellows. No introduction of the safety car just as yet by the look of things, albeit we do have a rescue unit on circuit as well, but that is on the inside of Ritchie's corner and is deemed to be in a safe position by the officials currently. So down through Palmer, Ian Logie not getting away from Simon Orange, a McLaren 1-2 at the moment. The Audi of Sasha Kakad there in third place. Then it's the Ferrari that leads Group GTC of Dan Dazil, the red car with the yellow stripe down the centre that sits there in fourth, but the leaders are within a car length of each other as they accelerate their way out of Agostini, all of them just going beyond the red and white painted curbs there, so they need to be careful they stay within the white lines or the curbs, otherwise they will pick up track limits warnings, which then turn into penalties. We've seen a few of those over the course of this weekend. Through the right-hander at Williams, speeds begin to build again as they head down the Bentley straight. Simon Orange is in the toe of the car ahead, but he's not going to close a great deal because of the equalisation of the performance of these cars. Up towards Brundle and Nelson, and it's still Ian Logie leading the way, the car that Tom Emson drove to victory in the sprint race earlier on today. And if anything, I would say over the course of this lap, the Audi is starting to edge up towards the pair of McLarens that lie ahead. So Ian Logie from Simon Orange from Sasha Kakad, that's the top three, and they're certainly getting closer to each other. Onto the brakes through the left-hander at Murray's. Lap number 2 is about to be completed any second now. The gap between them at the end of the first lap of racing was just under 0.6 of a second. This time as they come over the start-finish line, the gap is down to less than 0.5 of a second, and Sasha Kakad has edged up to them because of the first flying lap, and therefore the fastest lap of the race so far has gone the way of the Audi that sits there in third position with a 1 minute 51.391. Difficulty for Sasha Kakad is that once he catches those McLarens, then he's going to get stuck behind them and he's going to have to try and scratch his head and work out, can he weave his way past? Dan Dazil leads Group GTC. Leading Group GTO is now Paul Bailey at the wheel of number 28 Lamborghini, and leading Group GTH is the number 13 McLaren Artura, being run by Racelab, who seem to have had the upper hand over everybody in Group GTH over the course of this weekend. So the leading trio turn their way through the flick at Hamilton. Onto the brakes. Remember, these cars that are running at the front were the first to pit yesterday, which means that for today they get the second of the 2 pit windows, the later pit window, so they won't be into the pit lane until at least the 29th minute of the race. Whereas the cars in Group GTH will be in at the 26th minute of the race at the very earliest. So along the Bentley straight, you can see the heat haze coming off the engines of the cars as they're working terribly hard. Turbocharged cars of the McLarens, the 720S's, weaving their way through the right-hander at the bomb hole. Again, all of the cars using as much of the curb and probably a little bit more than they ought to be doing at that point of the circuit. That's because they are trying as hard as they possibly can to get away from each other, but it was only 1.2 seconds covering the top 3 at the end of lap number 2. Now the gap first to second, I don't think has changed a great deal this time through. Now, still got that yellow flag zone on the approach towards Ritchie's corner, so that's one overtaking opportunity that isn't still available to anybody just as yet. So they'll turn their way through the exit of Ritchie's and in towards the braking area for the right-hander at Wilson. That time through, Simon Orange set the fastest lap of the race, so he did bring the gap down to the race leader, Ian Logie. Simon Orange posting a time of a 1 minute 50.076, brought the lead advantage down from about half a second to around about 0.3 of a second. So Simon Orange is pushing hard here. And you can see, even though the 2 McLarens are pushing each other around, they have managed to gap the Audi of Sasha Kakad to a larger degree that time through, albeit the Audi was still only 1.3 seconds off the lead car. So onto the brakes, flicking their way through Oggies and then up towards the next of the right-handers, which is going to be Williams, and onto the Bentley straight for what is now the 4th time this time through. Now, key point to get off that corner cleanly. Simon Orange sitting in the slipstream of Ian Logie. GT3s are very aero-dependent cars, and when they get towards this section here, in towards Brundle and Nelson, because Simon Orange is so close to Ian Logie, he'll be getting the aero wash off the car, and that will affect the airflow over the front of his car, and therefore the amount of grip that he's got. So you start to overwork the tyres a little bit. You don't have the level of grip as Ian Logie runs wide that time, coming out of the bomb hole. That is a quick corner to be leaping over the curbs and picking up a little bit of the grass, but Ian Logie will be looking to see if he can just do anything to try and get away from Simon Orange, and I think over the course of the latter part of that lap he has just opened up a bit of a gap between himself and the man who's there in second place. So it's 76 Racing that lead the way. Orange Racing, powered by JMH, sitting there in second position. J&S Racing, or Cook Racing, they're there in third place. Dan Dazil is there in fourth place, with that time through Ian Logie having set the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 49.687. Two Lamborghinis coming towards us, the first of which is Charlotte Gilbert, the next of which is number 999 Patrick Collins. So one is a Super Trofeo specification car. If you look at where the engine intake is, and you get a little air scoop over the back of that car, whereas it's a very different rear end and body cover. So there's the air intake and the back of the Super Trofeo spec car, and the next minute you'll see that that Lamborghini there, which is a GT3 spec car, looks subtly different, and that's the difference between them, amongst many other things as well. The Lamborghini Super Trofeo car of Charlotte Gilbert is very much an unrestricted car, doesn't have the level of aerodynamics, so it's not quite as quick through the corners, but it's a rocket ship down the straights, whereas the GT3 car has air restrictors on the engine, so it's not quite as quick, but it's got better aero, so it can go through the corners quicker. But around the 2.9689 mile Snetterton 300 circuit, Charlotte Gilbert and Patrick Collins are pretty much matched for pace, aren't they, in this one, as the two of them head along the Bentley Straight now, with almost the first 10 minutes of the race having elapsed. Now Ian Logie still continues to lead. He got away from Simon Orange to a degree last time through. Simon Orange was still within a second of him, but it looks as though the lead advantage has grown again this time through, because the first third of the lap, Ian Logie has gone absolute best. He's gone quicker than he's previously gone through the middle part of the lap. And over the course of that lap, that's another new fastest lap of the race to our race leader, 1 minute 49.583. The lead advantage grows to 1.7 seconds, and now Simon Orange is getting caught by the car behind, because the Audi of Sasha Checkered over the course of that lap was 0.6 of a second quicker than the number 67 McLaren. What's going on in GTH, I hear you ask? Well, at the moment, we've got the battles beginning to form again, have we not, in Group GTH? Phil Carter is trying to chase down the car ahead of him, which is the number 96 car, the sole remaining Morpheus Motorsport car of John Curry. But if you look just behind the McLaren of Philip Carter, then who's there? It's another Mercedes, Charles Dawson, and these were the cars that were all embroiled in a fantastic squabble in Group GTH earlier on today, as was described by Piers Pryor and Amber on the run into this race. So there is the slightly ageing McLaren now. Seems as though we're doing it a disservice, but it's a bit long in the tooth now, the 570S, as Mikey Broadhurst was talking to us about. It's very much at the end of its modern GT life cycle now, with the introduction of the new Artura from McLaren at the beginning of this year. So that's sort of the next generation of GT4 cars that we'll see appearing, as we've got two in the category this weekend. And the 570 is very much an old car now, but is still proving to be competitive in the hands of Philip Carter, who has claimed a group win. Brilliant group win from himself and Mikey Broadhurst. He's had a couple of poles in the group in qualifying over the course of this season. He has only converted one of them to the win. He'd desperately like to finish the season on a high. He's certainly keeping John Curry fairly honest. They're fighting over what is second, third and fourth in Group GTH at the moment, because the Group GTH leading car is the red and black number 13 McLaren that's in the hands of Callum Davies and will be taken over by the Indian driver and reigning MRF champion, Sai Sanjay, for part two of the race. Here's our Group GTO leading car. This is Paul Bailey. He's there in 7th place as things currently stand. Right behind him is the Group GTH leading car of Callum Davies. So that's the car that Sai Sanjay claimed to win in the sprint race earlier on. And Callum Davies in a Group GTH car is doing a very good job of holding on to the Group GTO car of Paul Bailey, but Paul Bailey has already won the championship in GTO and has already won the overall championship, so there's not a great deal up for grabs here. He really just wants to make sure he has a clean race, has a bit of fun, and probably won't be at all worried about where he finishes. He wants to finish as high as he can, but you know, he's done the important thing, and that's stitch up the championship with James Dorlin over the course of this weekend. So we can see the relative gap from the Group GTH leading McLaren to those that are squabbling over second, third and fourth in the group. For the overall lead of the race, Simon Orange took a bit of a breather, didn't he? Dropped back from Ian Logley, but he's now caught him back up again. And the reason being that Simon Orange last time through set the fastest lap of the race once more, 1 minute 48.908. He has also just gone through the middle part of this lap, the middle sector, as an absolute best in the race so far. So the gap between himself and Ian Logley came down by 0.3 of a second in the first sector of the lap, and in the second sector of the lap it's come down by another 0.2 of a second. So the gap that was hovering around a second could be down to about 0.6 or 0.7 at the end of this lap, and they are coming up towards the end of it now as they exit Murray's and are now about to head on to lap number 8 of the race with 37 minutes remaining. So through they'll go, and for Simon Orange the gap is down to 0.9 of a second that time through. He wasn't quite as quick through the final sector as Ian Logley. Ian Logley was 0.4 of a second quicker through those last few twists and turns. That's why the gap didn't come down quite as much, but it's still McLaren, from Audi, from Ferrari, from Lamborghini, McLaren, Mercedes and McLaren, the top 10 currently. Just going to show the variety of different marques and manufacturers that are always represented in GT Cup. And that's without considering the fact that we've still got Aston Martins and Lotus in the field, and of course we did have the Mosler, which we lost earlier on as a result of problems in the sprint race. So 36 minutes to go, so we don't need to worry as yet about any pit windows opening just yet. These cars running at the front will have to wait for at least another 10 minutes yet before their pit window opens, whereas the cars in Group GTH, remember, will be able to pit within the next 5 minutes now almost. And what do the time penalties look like for cars? Well, we'll pick up in that in a moment, because we're going back to the squabble that's going on for second, third and fourth in Group GTH. Charles Dawson partnered up with former British GT champion Seb Morris for pretty much the whole season. They haven't been out at every single round, and we did miss Seb Morris at Brands Hatch because we had, was it Brands Hatch? Gustavo Xavier, didn't we, in for one particular round. The number 96 car of John Curry has been driven for the full season by him. Phil Keen's been in for most of the rounds and joined him again this weekend. The McLaren that sits in between the two Mercedes, Phil Carter, very much part of the Greystone family for the last few years. Partners for the full season with Mikey Broadhurst. And the three of them still fighting over second, third and fourth in Group GTH. Now, for these cars, when they come into the pits, for John Curry, the number 96 car, 100 seconds that will remain stationary. Philip Carter to Mikey Broadhurst, that McLaren, only 85 seconds for that car. And the car of Charles Dawson, when he gives way to Seb Morris, only 85 seconds for that car as well. So, at the moment, John Curry in the number 96 car is highly likely to be leapfrogged by the cars that are behind him, purely because of how long each car will spend in the pits. Ian Logley still pushing hard, coming up towards traffic. Chris Murphy's slightly older shape Aston Martin GT4 will be dealt with. He works his way through and past the 2018 overall GT Cup champion. Simon Orange should follow suit as well as they head in towards the braking area for Oggies. Now for Ian Logley, when he gives way to Tom Empson, that car will be stationary for 95 seconds, the number 76 McLaren. Whereas when Simon Orange comes into the pit lane to hand over to Tom Roach, that will be stationary for 5 seconds less, only 90 seconds. So as long as Simon Orange sticks to the coattails of Ian Logley, that should be good for the number 76 car. The Audi behind will have to stop for an extra 10 seconds compared to Simon Orange, an extra 5 seconds compared to Ian Logley, the race leader. So arguably, Sasha Kakad giving way to Hugo Cook, that car will lose time in the pits that Hugo will have to try and make up on the track later on. Simon Orange, it is absolutely key that he sticks within 5 seconds of the race leader Ian Logley for the next, 7 or 8 minutes before any of the cars at the sharp end can come into the pit lane. So this is now lap number 10 that Ian Logley is about to start. What has happened to the lead advantage? It's 1.7 seconds. We've still got Charlotte Gilbert second in Group GTC at the moment. She has still got Patrick Collins right behind her. Not quite as close, Patrick, as he was earlier on. But that's another good little fight that's going on, Lamborghini to Lamborghini, and that will be a fight for 5th and 6th overall against the car that is currently second in Group GTC, against the car that's 4th in Group GT3, and that, I'm afraid, is Charles Dawson has had a problem. Now that looks as though that is the exit of Williams, maybe, where he's had an off. No, it's not, it's the exit of Agostini where he's had an off. So gets the car pointing in the right direction and heads up towards Oggies, but I'm afraid that has lost that Ram Racing Mercedes a whole raft of time with the car pointing backwards. So he was running in 11th position, 4th in Group GT8, but that will drop him down through the order. Quick flash of the lights from Ian Logie, because he's coming up against a little bit more traffic that he'll want to try and peel his way through and past. Meets it in a straight line, so Tim Docker sees the car coming, keeps the McLaren Artura out of harm's way. Simon Orange won't quite be able to get past that McLaren now, I don't think, before Brundle and Nelson. So this could be quite critical here, because Ian Logie is getting a better run through the traffic early stages of this lap. The lead advantage was 1.7 seconds. Hugo Cook, scheduled to take over the Audi, will be urging on Sasha Kakad to keep pushing hard, as he also now needs to try and deal with Tim Docker. And again, decisive dive up the inside of Alana Carter's Lotus goes Ian Logie to place a lap on the GT4. Lotus Emira, very much on home turf, isn't it, the Lotus, with Hethel just being down the road in Norfolk, the Lotus factory. So what's the lead gap done that time through? It's actually come down in the end, so Simon Orange might not have got the rub of the green through the traffic in the early part of the lap, but he's certainly improved on the latter part of the lap with his decision-making through the traffic. Ian Logie running a little bit wide there under braking as well for Wilson, so the lead advantage is down to 1.4 seconds. And in a few seconds' time, we should get the pit window opening for the cars in Group GTH. So it'll be interesting to see how many opt to dive for the pit lane early on in this race. Doesn't stay open for long, the pit window. The cars have to pit between the 24th and the 29th minute, so it's only a 5-minute pit window, and when it's taking you in a GT4 car the best part of 2 minutes to do a lap, well, it's really only open for a couple of laps, isn't it, the window? So Ian Logie and Simon Orange, more cars have been dealt with. Now they've finally got a little bit of clear tarmac ahead of them as they head onto the Bentley Straight for the 12th time, so there's no further traffic for the next lap or so. As we say, any of those, when I say slower cars, I mean just purely because of the group that they're in, cars in Group GTH, they may well all peel into the pit lane before too much longer, so that means that the tarmac will become even freer for them. Patrick Collins still doing a good job in the hired car for this weekend. Having never driven a GT3 car before, really has not really put a foot wrong in it. It's just got quicker and quicker and quicker over the course of the weekend. Haven't managed to catch up with Patrick, but I'd imagine he's a fairly easy guy to spot because he'll have a big old smile on his face. So there's Sasha Kakad. That car, the Audi, still running in 3rd position, but it's now dropped to about 2.5 seconds shy of the car ahead of it. Here is Dan Dazil. He continues to lead Group GTC and is running in 4th place overall in the Ferrari 488 Evo. So that's a Ferrari Challenge specification car. All the cars that run to newer Challenge specs, like the Lamborghini Super Trofeo and the Ferraris, going to Group GTC. There is a Group GTB. We don't have any cars in it, but that's for older specification Challenge cars. And that, I'm afraid, oh, commentator's curse. I said he hadn't put a foot wrong. But Patrick Collins is off the circuit in the Lamborghini. I think it's just a spin. He spun onto the grass, and I would say that is somewhere like the bomb hole or something like that, because looking at the banking in the background, yeah, it's just been confirmed in my ear, it is at the bomb hole. He rejoins. Didn't see the start of it, but we caught the end of it. And just as I said, he hadn't put a wheel wrong all weekend. Apologies, Patrick, my fault. I'll hold my hand up for that one. A spin, he's lost time. And where's he dropped to? Because he was running in 6th position. Dirty Pirelli's nearly caught him out there as well as he tried to brake for Murray's. And Patrick Collins comes over the start-finish line. Is he still in 6th position? I think he might be, you know. Yes, he is, but he is now 25 seconds adrift of Charlotte Gilbert, where he was about 2 or 3 seconds adrift. So yeah, he's only just starting the lap, whereas Charlotte Gilbert is already a third of the way round it, and now in the number 2 Top Cats Racing Lamborghini, heading round through Agostini. Now we've not seen any of the Group GTH cars, I don't think, dive for the pit lane just as yet. Hugo Cook scheduled to take over this Audi, but their pit window doesn't open until later on. So here's Ian Loggy, Simon Orange, Sasha Checkered, first, second and third. Sasha Checkered is 3.5 seconds off Simon Orange. Simon Orange is still 1.6 seconds off Ian Loggy, and that's quite critical in this race, because remember, the McLaren in second place will be stopping for 5 seconds shorter than the race-leading McLaren of Ian Loggy. So that is working well for Orange Racing, powered by JMH. And of course, on the basis only 10.5 points in the team's championship, but we have lost one of the Morpheus cars, it still is up for grabs, because all we need is, you know, a trip over a back marker, and that's something like that spin that we just saw for Patrick Collins, which thankfully meant that the car could continue. Just any small mistake like that, and all of a sudden the team's championship could change enormously. Still leading Group GTO is Paul Bailey, but right in his mirror still is the Group GTH leading car of Callum Davies. So Paul Bailey turning his way through Brundle and Nelson in the Lamborghini Huracan. Glorious noise that the V10 Lamborghini makes, whereas the McLaren Artura, I was listening to them when they were testing on Friday, unbelievably quiet for a race car. I thought the McLaren Artura doesn't have the howl of the V10 like the Lamborghini. McLaren is a turbocharged car, makes a very different noise to the Lamborghini. As they come over the start-finish line this time through, I can see there is a 5-second penalty being held out for somebody, and I think it might be the race leader, Ian Loggy. Couldn't quite catch the number on the board, but it has just shown up, yet been confirmed by race control. Car number 76, the race leader, Ian Loggy, has got a 5-second penalty for transgressing the circuit limits, and that plays beautifully now into the hands of Simon Orange in second place, who was trying to stay within 5 seconds of him anyway, purely because the race leader was going to have to stop for longer in the pits, and the second place car should be able to leapfrog it. Well, absolutely, I don't think there's any question now that as long as Simon Orange just keeps things neat and tidy, and as does Tom Roach, that they could potentially be picking up maximum points for themselves, and that of course will add to the team tally as well. But that 5-second penalty will only be applied at the end of the race. It's not as though now Ian Loggy will have to stop not just for 5 seconds longer, 10 seconds longer than the car behind. No, he'll still have to stop for 5 seconds longer, and that 5-second time penalty gets added at the end of the race. Into the pit lane, we finally see the first pit stop as Tim Docker comes in to hand over to ex-single-seater racer Alex Walker, going to work our Paddock Motorsport, putting a new set of Pirellis on the front of the car. Are going to change the rears as well? It looks as though they are. So they are clearly feedback from Tim Docker, and based on the amount of time that they've got to conduct this pit stop, let's stick some new boots on it. We'll change some tyres over. It's been a warm weekend. There's been a lot of racing. You're limited to the amount of Pirellis you can bolt on over a weekend, but they've clearly opted to switch the tyres over. But for the lead of the race, we've still got Ian Loggy on the road leading. Simon Orange ever closer to him. So the gap was down to 1.2 seconds at the start of this lap, but over the course of this lap, Simon Orange was about half a second quicker through the first sector and was about 3/4 tenths of a second quicker through the second sector. So the gap should be down to about 6/10 of a second, something like that, when they flash their way over the start-finish line this time through. Might be a little bit more, because Ian Loggy seemed to get a better run coming out of Murray's. It's up to 8/10 of a second, but that's not a great deal at all. And remember, Ian Loggy will be stopping for 5 seconds longer in the pits, and also has a 5-second penalty post-race hanging over him. So into the Wilson hairpin, 2 subtly different lines taken all of the time. I've spotted that. Ian Loggy taking a different line from Simon Orange, and also I saw the tail end of his McLaren wiggle round there on the exit, either with the traction kicking in or with Ian having to briefly lift off the throttle to try and control any oversteer. We've also got in the pit lane John Curry giving way to Phil Keane. That's the number 96 car. That will be coming out of the pit lane very shortly. The number 14 McLaren of Philip Carter is in to hand over to Mikey Broadhurst. There are Greystone GT going to work, just adjusting tyre pressures on that car. As the tyres get warm, the air pressure builds up, and then it takes the tyre out of its prime operating window. So by just dropping those pressures off a little bit, you keep the tyre in its ideal operating window. Bleed a bit of the pressure off. You also saw the Lotus come in, which is Alana Carter, ready to hand over to Sarah Misa. So that's the Canadian jumping out, the Jamaican jumping in. Look for Simon Orange. He is at the moment trying to wiggle his way past traffic. Ian Logie was able to get through and lap the car of Callum Davies. Simon Orange couldn't quite manage to do so by the end of the Bentley straight, and now he can't do it until the exit of the bomb hole, where he should be able to wiggle his way through and past. So does so on the approach towards Coram, but again, good driving by Ian Logie means that there's another car between himself and Simon Orange, and that time it's the Group GTO leading Lamborghini of Paul Bailey that has been placed a lap down by the race leader, but not as yet been placed a lap down by Simon Orange. Mikey Broadhurst jumps on board the McLaren, so that's the Group GTH car heading back out of the pit lane. Simon Orange, even along the centre straight, still hasn't got past the Lamborghini of Paul Bailey as yet. Waits until the exit of Ritchie's to do so. Sarah Misa heads down pit road at the wheel of the fabulous looking Lotus Emira. And before too much longer, we might start to see some of the cars coming into the pit lane at the sharp end of this race. Not just as yet, because their pit window doesn't open until the 29th minute of the race. So in other words, there's 21 minutes remaining. So in another 30, 40 seconds time, that pit window will open. And you can't come into the pit lane and break the beam before that point. So you almost need to sort of work out with the team where you are on track and how many seconds there are to go. But as he's exiting Williams now and heading onto the Bentley straight, 20 seconds time, that will be before that car comes over the start-finish line. So Ian Logie could potentially pit at the end of this lap and hand the car over to Tom Empson. So 95 seconds, the race-leading McLaren will have to remain stationary. 90 seconds for the number 67 McLaren of Simon Orange in second place. And for the third place, number 32 Audi, 100 seconds, that car will have to remain stationary. And that's all to do with where they finished in yesterday's pit stop race. If you win the pit stop race, it's 20 seconds. If you're second, it's 15. If you're third, it's 10. And then on the basis that each one of these drivers is an AM driver or a sporty driver driving with a pro sporting, then that's why they remain stationary for 80 seconds plus those success seconds. Marcus Clutton looking at the screen, ready to dive on board the number 999 Lamborghini Huracan of Patrick Collins. Look at the focus on those eyes. Out of the pit lane comes the number 13 car, so that's Callum Davis done with driving for the weekend. Sai Sanjay, the Indian driver joining us for this weekend, jumps on board. There's a lot of support and interest from him, his native country, and that car at the moment is leading Group GTH and has had the pace all weekend. So Simon Orange in, ready to hand the car over to Tom Roach. Ian Logie came in, as we know. We also saw Sasha Checkered come in, so Hugo Cook will be jumping on board the Audi. You can see the GT Cup officials also just checking all of these pit stops are done absolutely matching and not infringing upon the championship regulations. So in other words, driver needs to be in, the seatbelts need to be properly tightened, the seatbelts need to be over the hand and neck support, the hands device, ignition and engine needs to be off whilst all of this is going on. There's only a certain amount of people that are allowed to work on the car in any one single pit stop as well, and all of this is all being checked by the officials down there and the scrutineers in the pit lane, and any sort of infringement is frowned upon and penalties are issued. Into the pit lane also comes Charlotte Gilbert, so that's to hand the car over to Sam Neary. Now that Lamborghini will have to stop for 100 seconds because Sam is the pro driver, so that adds to the tally, whereas the Ferrari that was leading Group GTC will stop for 20 seconds less. So that certainly means that when Graham Dazil jumps on board that Ferrari, Sam Neary's got a job to do. Into the pit lane comes Patrick Collins, had that little spin midway through the race, but no harm done. And the race off pit road does see Tom Roach come out, understandably ahead of Tom Empson. So I did say it would be likely that the two McLarens would swap positions in the pit stop because of the Dayglow orange car having to stop for 5 seconds longer. Indeed, that is still the case. But remember, Tom Roach is leading. The car behind, in the hands of Tom Emsom, is in second place, but still has that 5-second penalty that will need to be dealt with at the end of the race. One car that hasn't pitted yet, though, is Dan Dazil. So the number 19 Ferrari now, the 488 Evo, has gone through into the lead of the race, but it is, I think, the only car that hasn't pitted just as yet. Everybody else has conducted a pit stop, barring that car, and Chris Murphy at the wheel of number 72 Aston Martin hasn't come in as yet. So this is, in reality, the battle for the lead of the race once everybody has cycled through the pit stops. But even if the McLarens swap order again, Tom Emson would need to be 5 seconds up the road from Tom Roach to overcome the penalty that was picked up by Ian Logie earlier on in the race. And they are both coming up against traffic, and that traffic, I'd have thought, would be destined for the pits at the end of this lap, because that's Chris Murphy, one of the two cars that hasn't pitted as yet. Now this car could be one to watch in this one, Marcus Clutton. 85 seconds that car was stationary in the pit lane area, so 5 seconds less than some of the other cars running in Group GT3. Sam Neary's now jumped on board the number 2 Lamborghini Huracan and will do what Sam does, drive the wheels off the thing. He's been racing for Grasser, a European team, sideways going in towards the Wilson hairpin, bouncing over the curbs on the way out. That tells you everything you need to know about what Sam Neary's going to do. He's going to wring the neck of the Lamborghini. I don't know whether he's driven prior to this weekend a Super Trofeo spec car. He's certainly spent a good amount of this season racing not just in a GT3 Mercedes, but in Europe for Grasser Racing in a GT3 Lamborghini Huracan. And he will look to try and push as hard as he possibly can in this one, but see whether they are able to bring that Lamborghini up towards this Ferrari of Dan Dazil, which still continues to lead but hasn't pitted as yet. So Dan will have to be in the pits at the end of this lap, I would have thought, otherwise he might be a little bit too late. What we've got, yeah, with pit window closes with 15 minutes to go, and there's 16 minutes and 20 to go. So the Ferrari at the end of this lap has to be into the pit lane, otherwise, if my understanding of the regulations is correct, it will be pitting outside of the pit window, and that would pick up a penalty. But Dan will be aware of that. The team will be on the radio. He peels his way into the pit lane, vacates the lead of the race, and is about to hand over the Ferrari to his dad. Marcus Clutton pushing on. There's the noise of the Ferrari. It sounds rough, but that's the pit lane speed limiter that is just keeping the car down to the regulatory pit lane speed limit here at Snetterton. So that will be conducting its pit stop. Now for Simon Orange having given way to Tom Roach, there's nothing more he can do. He'll be very conscious of the fact that they have got at least one hand on the team's trophy. Orange Racing, powered by JMH, pushing hard for the team's trophy. And there's another driver from that team is down there in the pit lane.
We thought we'd come and grab a word with you, Patrick, because it looked like you're having a great time out there. The car's really fast, of course, first time you drove it yesterday. Again, you came out with a massive smile on your face and a big pat on the back from the team.
Yeah, I don't know why, because I span it at Coram, which I think scared everybody, including the people who lent the car to us. But no, I loved it. I didn't realise how big the jump was between GTC with really not a lot of downforce to something like where we are now with GT3. It was a significant difference. Takes a bit of getting used to, which clearly I'm not quite there yet.
What happened with that little incident at Coram?
Well, actually, I was saying to Graham, I was literally on the radio saying, tyres are horrible, they're really going off, and as I was saying it, I went off. So it was basically a lack of concentration on my part. So, yeah, there could be a kicking later, and I'll deserve it, so for sure.
But Marcus is out there, fresh tyres. You may not have seen, but the Morpheus Racing team had a bit of misfortune on the first lap. One of their cars pulled off, so you're in a very good position for the championship.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I'm bad for them because they're great people, right? And they've had a fantastic season all season. So sounds like we might be in with a shout still. It was looking really down to the wire. Probably might still be, but yeah, look, I'm sorry for them because they're great guys. But with a bit of luck, we might just scrape it in.
Well, I suppose hopefully for you guys, you'll scrape it in. But I'm glad you enjoyed it. Good to hear from you. Thanks for chatting to us.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Cheers, Pete.
Cheers. Back to you, Mark.
Thanks, Piers. Yeah, good to hear from Patrick. I knew he'd have a smile on his face. How could you not, having jumped out of a Lamborghini? I'm afraid, however, they might not have a smile on their face for too much longer, because car number 999 has got a stop-go penalty of 2 seconds because its pit stop was too short, I'm afraid. So it wasn't in the pit lane for 85 seconds. It would have been in the pit lane. It's 85 plus 18 seconds, I think, to drive down the pit lane at the regulatory speed limit, I think is absolutely true. So it should have been in the pit lane area from pit in to pit out for 103. It must have been 101 seconds. The penalty for that is you have to serve a stop-go penalty for the amount that you were short, which was only 2 seconds. But the problem is you're going to have to drive all the way down pit lane at pit lane speed limit again to serve that, decelerating from race speed to pit lane speed, stopping for 2 seconds and accelerating from pit lane speed back up to race speed again, which is not going to cost you 2 seconds. That's going to cost you probably something like 25, nearly 30 seconds. So Marcus Clutton will have to bring that car back in to the pit lane, so that is going to somewhat undo some of the hard work they were looking to try and do in Group GT3. However, I still think that will be sufficient for them to claim the Group GT3, the team's title for Orange Racing powered by JMH, as long as Tom Roach keeps doing what he's doing and Marcus Clutton serves that penalty and comes back out and keeps things clean. We've also seen exactly what happened in yesterday's pit stop race. As soon as James Dorlin jumped on board the number 28 Lamborghini Hurricane, vacated by Paul Bailey, he's pumping in fastest laps of the race, 1 minute 46.709 now for the number 28 Lamborghini Hurricane that runs in Group GTO. This car here in the hands of Sai Sanjay is leading Group GTH. Leading Group GTC is still the number 19 Ferrari, now in the hands of Graham DeZiel. And for Sai Sanjay, he is leading Group GTH and is 3.1 seconds up the road from Mikey Broadhurst at the wheel of this number 14 McLaren. So that could be one to watch at this stage. 3.160 is the gap from the first car in Group GTH back to the second car in Group GTH. So Sai Sanjay is about to be lapped by Graham DeZiel's Group GTC leading Ferrari. He is not going to move overly out of harm's way to let the Ferrari through. He'll want to just allow it to work its way past on the straight, because that way then Sai will lose very little time indeed at the wheel of the race lab prepared car, and he's got to keep pushing because he's got the pro driver, Mikey Broadhurst, queuing up behind him. For Sai Sanjay, it's his first race outside of his native India. He's not seen Snetterton before, whereas Mikey Broadhurst has been racing around Snetterton, could probably do it with his eyes closed. So Sai Sanjay is going to have to keep driving the wheels off the McLaren Artura if he wants to try and prevent Mikey Broadhurst in the older McLaren, the 570S, closing in on him. But either way, it's been a great debut in GT Cup for the Indian driver, having claimed the win in Group GTH earlier on today. Tom Roach still leading the way, the lead advantage on the road 1.4 seconds, but remember the McLaren in second place. The number 76 car has got a 5-second penalty that will be applied at the end of the race. Tom Roach just needs to make sure he stays within the confines of the circuit as well in the race leading McLaren 720S GT3 Evo. Most of these cars having been upgraded to the latest Evo specification issued by McLaren at the beginning of the season, which wasn't just a few changes to the bodywork. Visually, you could see very little change on the outside, other than there's now 2 dive planes in the front corners of the cars. The car behind is a non-Evo version because it's only got the single dive planes. And the car of Tom Emson, which was driven so well in the early part of the race by Ian Loggy. I think Ian Loggy is down there in the pit lane.
Yes, Ian, you had a great first stint right up there. Car must have felt pretty good for you. And how was it?
Yeah, good start, and made a bit of a gap. Where we needed to be, I think maybe 4 seconds. Simon Norman's drove a good race and came back at me a few times, but yeah, we came in with a lead. We had a 5-second success penalty, so the GAWH car managed to get out in front of us, so they're 2 seconds in front, but unfortunately we got, or I got done for the dreaded track limits, which, hey ho, it's one of these things, if you hit the sensor, you hit it, but if I had to rewind it, I think I would have sworn I never, but I did because it's on camera, so nothing else to say.
Such fine margins, isn't it? Such fine margins, and we saw that on the pit exit as well. Cars coming up pretty much side by side almost.
Yeah, no, exactly that. It's very, very fine margins. So it's looking like we'll take a podium here, but we're not going to get P1 unless the McLaren in front gets a track limit and they take 5 seconds. But I don't think they will, because they'll know that, so they'll be very, very careful. Yeah, it's good. It's a good bit of fun, good race.
It was a good race. Well done. Great pace as always, Ian. Thanks for chatting to us.
Cheers. Thank you.
Mark, back to you.
Thanks, Piers. Yeah, always good to hear from Ian Logie. And yeah, the dreaded track limits, as he called it. But they've all been pushing the limits on it. As a racing driver, that's what you do. If you're not pushing the limits, you're not trying hard enough. And, well, there's Tom Emson pushing the limits as soon as I say it, round through the bomb hole and on the exit. So that was nearly all 4 wheels off there. Not quite, but nearly all 4 wheels off there. And for Tom Emson, he will know that that was, pretty much the outer edge of the circuit and will have blended off the throttle to a degree to correct the car. He'll also be conscious that he probably needs to rein it in a little bit there next time through. There's a black and white warning flag going out for track limits, this time to the number 78 car that's going out. Now that is for the car that Tim Docker started and has now been taken over by Alex Walker. So that's the Paddock Motorsport McLaren Artura that runs in Group GTH and is currently sitting in 5th position in Group GTH. So with 7 minutes to go, this car here, number 67, Tom Roach, leads the race. 76, Tom Emson is in 2nd place. 32, Sasha Kakad is in 3rd. All of those cars are in Group GT3. You can see all 3 of them in the same shot there. Dan Dazil has handed over to Graham Dazil, so the number 19 Ferrari is now in 4th position, leading Group GTC. And Sam Neary is in 5th place. He is 2nd in Group GTC at the moment. 6th place is Marcus Clutton. That's the number 999 Lamborghini. And then in 7th place, the Group GTO leading car in the hands of James Dorlin. 8th place is the Group GTH leading car, number 13, in the hands of Sai Sanjay. And that gap between himself and Mikey Broadhurst that was 3.1 seconds a few laps ago has still only come down to 2.9. So Sai Sanjay is doing a very good job of hauling round that number 13 McLaren without losing too much time to Mikey Broadhurst, who is far more familiar with the twists and turns of Snetterton than Sai is. So this is Marcus Clutton. This is the 2nd of the cars that's being run by Orange Racing, powered by JMH, who really just need both cars to finish this race now to wrap up the final championship that hasn't been decided, which is the Teams Championship. And if they do that, then that means that Orange Racing, powered by JMH, will have won that Teams Championship 3 years on the trot. They won it in 2021 when they first got together as a partnership. They won it in 2022. They're heading towards it potentially in 2023. But even JMH Automotive on their own secured championships in GT Cup in 2019 and 2016. So they've already got, whether it be either working with Orange Racing or by themselves, 4 Teams Championships and could be heading towards a 5th. Tom Emson is not going to make it easy for Tom Roach. The 2 Toms busy squabbling away. As you can see in the bottom right of the screen, another new fastest lap to James Dorlin, that time through in the Group GTO leading Lamborghini, 1 minute 46.708. So the 2 McLarens busy squabbling away. Is Sasha Kakad closing on them? That's the next question. Yes, he is. Yes, he's about 1/10 of a second quicker than Tom Emson last time through, and was about 0.6 of a second quicker than Tom Roach, the race leader. So the Audi, with 5 minutes to go, is on its way. That is absolutely for sure. And Hugo Cook will be looking to drive the wheels off that thing. The difficulty is in GT3 cars. Catching is not easy, but he's doing it. Getting past is a very different prospect, and particularly as we've now got the pro sporting drivers behind the wheel, who are arguably the quicker and the more experienced of them. So nose dips on the race leading McLaren. Tom Roach still pressing on, coming under increasing pressure again this time through from Tom Emson. You can see the amount of daylight between the pair of them is closing ever more. Tom Emson again running very wide, coming out of the bomb hole and up towards Coram. He did that a lap or so ago. I mean, that is one of the corners where arguably you might be able to get away with it a little bit more, because I don't think there's any track sensors there, and the marshal's post is a fair way away from that position. So over the start-finish line they go. 4 minutes to go, so they've got the lap they're starting and 2 more thereafter before we conclude our 2023 championship, and we still don't know what way the team's championship is going. It's looking as though it's going to go the way of Orange Racing powered by JMH, but any slip up at all, and say one of the two cars scoring points for that team couldn't finish, all of a sudden it becomes a different prospect again. So out of Palmer, along the short straight that brings them up towards the braking area for Agostini. Simon Orange will be biting his nails in the pit lane. The Audi, of course, remember, in the hands of Hugo Cook, has already sealed the GT3 category in GT Cup for this year, which was what Simon Orange and Michael O'Brien secured in the car that leads this race last year. They were the GT3 group winners for the year and the overall champions for the year, as it was on that occasion. And they are leading here in that same car. Simon Orange partnered up with Tom Roach for this season, but still work to do. Seb Morris in the Ram Racing GT4 Mercedes is the next car that needs dealing with, and Tom Roach manages to get past that car before Brundle and Nelson, so he's managed to get a slower car, backmarker car, between himself and Tom Emson behind, and Tom Emson can't get through before the bomb hole, so that is absolutely critical. That was for Tom Roach. He was desperate to try and make sure he got past that back marker, as Piers and I were chatting about in the sprint race earlier on. It's where you overtake that's important, and for Tom Roach, he wanted to get past that Mercedes before Brundle and Nelson, to then know that it'd be very difficult for Tom Emson to get past it until Coram. That's exactly what happened, so the lead advantage that time through now comes back out by 9/10 of a second, so 9/10 of a second gained almost just with where the traffic was met there. Remember, the McLaren in second place has still got a 5-second penalty as well, so on corrected times, this number 76 McLaren is going to finish not second, it will finish third by the time we add the 5-second penalty. And we are now on to the penultimate lap of the season as well, so out of the left-hander at Palmer, down the short straight. James Dorlin is closing in on Sasha Kakat's Audi, but James Dorlin is at the moment down in 7th position, so he is not on the lead lap. But the number 28 Lamborghini, the black car with the day-glow yellow flashes to it, runs in Group GTO, so it should be a little bit quicker than the GT3 cars in a straight line. James Dorlin won't worry that he's catching the quick guys, he'll want to try and unlap himself if he can. So down the straight, they'll all work their way. Still more traffic to deal with, which will be Phil Keane in the Morpheus Racing number 96 Mercedes AMG GT4 is the next car that we'll see our race leader squeeze his way through and past. Hugo Cook is now very much on the coattails of Tom Emson for second and for third place, but say even if the Audi ends up stuck behind the McLaren all the way to the checkered flag, which will only come out in about a lap's time, it would still go ahead of it on corrected times because of that 5-second penalty that will be applied post-race. So over the start-finish line with 30 seconds to go goes Tom Roach. It's looking as though himself and Simon Orange are on for yet another win, but there's still work to do, there's still traffic to deal with. Past Sai Sanjay's car, which still continues to lead Group GTH, or does it? No, he has been caught by Mikey Broadhurst, so the slightly older 570S McLaren of Greystone GT has gone through. So for Mikey Broadhurst, he finally managed to pick the pocket of Sai Sanjay. Let's say Mikey Broadhurst has turned many a lap around here at Snetterton, whereas Sai Sanjay has only raced here this weekend, so it's the traffic that's being dealt with up at Agostini. Sai Sanjay sees him's coming, lets Tom Emson through, lets Hugo Cook through, lets the Lamborghini of James Dorlin through, and now Mikey Broadhurst is going to let the race leader through, which is Tom Roach, goes through and past the Group GTH leading McLaren. So GT3 McLaren past GT4 McLaren, the clock has ticked to 0. They're on their final lap, and therefore for the final time down the Bentley Straight we will go for this season. It looks as though Orange Racing powered by JMH are on for the win. It also looks as though Orange Racing powered by JMH are on for the team's title as well, because all we really needed to happen was both of their cars to finish, and one of them is leading overall, the other is in 5th place at the moment, but we've still got traffic to deal with as Tom Empson gets through and past Mikey Broadhurst. Through goes Hugo Cook. James Dorlin sneaks his way through. It's such a shame that James Dorlin is a lap down, because otherwise that would be a brilliant battle, wouldn't it? But for the final time this year, up towards the checkered flag, which is being readied, the final win of the year will go the way of Simon Orange and Tom Roach in the 2023 GT Cup Championship. They come through to claim the win. It's going to be Sasha Kakak and Hugo Cook on corrected times in the Audi that finish in 2nd place, ahead of Ian Loggy and Tom Empson, who finish in 3rd position. And then we just need to wait and see as to what is happening for 4th place, because it looks as though the Teams Championship will go the way of Orange Racing, powered by JMH, because Patrick Collins and Marcus Clutton are on their final lap, and as long as they take the checkered flag, then that's the team's title that has definitely gone their way, but not until that car crosses the start-finish line. Can we absolutely confirm that? It's in the middle sector of the lap at the moment, but JMH know that they've done it, because Marcus Clutton, if needs be, he would absolutely limp the car back round. You can see what it means to them all as well. So there is the car, just heading along the Bentley Straight for the final time, and once that car heads over the start-finish line, that is, subject to official confirmation, the Teams Championship for the 3rd year on the trot, heading towards Orange Racing, powered by JMH. So this car is running in 4th position. Marcus Clutton on the previous lap got through and ahead of Graham DeZiel, who had a bit of an off lap at the wheel of the Ferrari and dropped from 4th down to 5th place, but the Ferrari will still finish as the winner in Group GTC. But let's just wait for this Lamborghini to head round the final corner and watch it head towards the checkered flag, and then we have pretty much then sealed our final championship that we need to. So here comes the number 999 car of Marcus Clutton over the start-finish line. 4th place overall for the second of the 2 Orange Racing powered by JMH cars. So subject to official confirmation, they become the Teams champion for 2023, and that will be their 3rd Teams championship on the trot. We get through in 5th place. Charlotte Gilbert and Sam Neary in 5th place on the final lap. They claim the win in Group GTC, because again it was another poor lap from Graham DeZiel. I do think that Ferrari might have had a problem in the end, because Sam Neary pipped the Ferrari on the very final lap. We didn't get to see that, and therefore the Ferrari finishes in 6th place. The winning Group GTO goes the way of Paul Bailey and James Dorlin, and the final win of the season in Group GTH, only for the 2nd time this year. Well done again to Phil Carter, who's really come on as a driver this year, and his pro driver, who ensures that he points him in the right direction, gives him all the feedback he needs, because they will win Group GTH. But yeah, that Lamborghini there in the hands of Sam Neary closed in on the Ferrari of Graham DeZiel at the end of the race. He had a couple of slowish laps, Graham DeZiel, which suggests that there might be some sort of issue with that car, and that was why they lost the lead of Group GTC. So into the pit lane comes the cars. We will very shortly be able to confirm the results with you, and then we'll certainly be heading down to the pit lane, which is where we've got Amber Jones and Piers Pryor ready for some reaction after what has been a mega 2023 championship season in GT Cup. So let's confirm the final results for you this year. The win, the last one of the year, and the Teams Championship goes the way of Orange Racing powered by JMH. Simon Orange and Tom Roach claim the win, with Sasha Kakak and Hugo Cook in 2nd place, and Ian Loggy and Tom Empson in 3rd. 4th for Patrick Collins and Marcus Clutton, and 5th in the winning Group GTC on the very final lap, going the way of Charlotte Gilbert and Sam Neary. 6th place for Graham and Dan DeZiel, 7th place in the winning Group GTO for Paul Bailey and James Dorlin, and 8th place in the winning Group GTH, going the way of Philip Carter and Mikey Broadhurst. 9th place was Callum Davis and Sai Sanjay, and completing the top 10 was John Curry and Phil Keane. Then as we move outside of the top 10, in 11th place, Charles Dawson and Seb Morris, with Tim Docker and Alex Walker in 12th place. 13th place goes the way of Alana Carter and Sarah Mizerm. 14th and the last of the finishers was Chris Murphy at the wheel of his Aston Martin. Problems on the first lap for David Frankland and Stephen Walton put both of those cars out of the race, and that's the results for the final round of the GT Cup Championship for 2023. So it really has been a mega weekend of racing here at Snetterton. We've been blessed with some brilliant weather. We've crowned our champions, so now for the final time it's time to go down to the pit lane for some reaction.
Oh, that was so sad, Mark. For the final time we're coming down to the pit lane for our reaction. But what a great pit stop race, the last one of the 2023 GT Cup Championship season. But congratulations to Simon Orange and Tom Roach for taking that win and securing the team standings as well. It was a great race.
It was, and it was it's fitting almost that the last championship to get decided, which was the Teams Championship, was won by Simon Orange and Tom Roach, and that sort of helped them clinch it. really, really big shame for Morpheus Racing with that first lap incident, which meant that they couldn't basically take it to the wire. But no, a great race, and yeah, of course, it was a good first stint for Ian Loggy as well. Unfortunately, that track limit penalty didn't help them, and then of course the Audi was always it was right there as it always has been all season.
I know, lots of big battles. I think it'd be great to catch a word with some of the drivers as well, Piers. I'm going to come over and speak to Tom if I can catch him. Hi Tom, that was a very interesting race, wasn't it? I'm sure you're happy taking the team stand-ins and taking the final win.
Yeah, great way to finish the season. It was yeah, a bit of a weird race really. We had a track limit warning early on, so I knew kind of really it was only mine to lose. You know, the only way you could really lose it is to get more warnings. So yeah, just go around, try not to make any mistakes. It's really hard to follow. So I knew the guys behind. You know, even if they got near, it's one thing getting near, but another getting past. So yeah, just sort of controlled race and a great way to finish.
Yeah, and quite a physically demanding race, isn't it, really? Like, speaking to the drivers afterwards, you all seem a little bit out of it because it's so hard. You are pushing, there's lots of traffic. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, it's quite a physical track. There's lots of long, fast corners, and these cars have got so much grip. Feels like it's going to pull your head off sometimes. But no, yeah, it's been a great season. I just want to say thanks to everyone at JMH and Orange Racing, and obviously teammate Simon, because it's been a great year.
Here he is, Simon. I'm sure you're absolutely buzzing with that result as well.
Yeah, it's very disappointing not to win the overall and the GT3 but anyway, we've got to make do with the team championship. It's a few times that now, so going well.
Exactly. I mean, you can't win them all, or can you? We'll see next season, but it's been strong pace from both of you and as a team collectively. Unfortunately for Russ and Patrick, a few problems with the Porsche, but still coming out and having Marcus Clutton joining you was quite good to end it, really.
Yeah, it was, and they've, in fact, the start of the season, because I banged it in the wall at Donington, Russ and Patrick had scored more points than we had. We only overtook them halfway through the season.
Well, we're going to have to push back a little bit, let the cars in.
Yeah, they've really made a great contribution, so it's a proper team win. Yeah, pleased for Russ and Patrick as well. Yeah. Russ does like a trophy, as you know.
He does like one.
Pleased for JMH as well, who've just been absolutely brilliant. Tom said earlier they changed the car overnight because we're having problems with it yesterday. So, yeah, JMH, certainly the best team around.
They're honestly a great team, and it shows that in the standings. So congratulations, and hopefully we'll see you for more action next year. Thank you, guys.
Great to hear from our teams, part of our team's champions. Why don't we go over and grab a word with Sasha Checkered and Hugo Cook. Sasha and Hugo, one final interview for the year. I know that you love it. Sasha, your favourite thing is the interviews at the weekend. Another strong race. The whole season you were there or thereabouts, consistent results, another one there.
Yeah, it was just a bit too big of a gap in the end, you know. To even catch was a bit difficult, but the McLaren just out of a corner has just got that extra bit of boost. But it was good fun.
Good fun. Would you agree with the summary that Hugo gave there?
I've got to say, I mean, for him to close the gap as we came out of the pit stops, he was closing on them at a second and a half a lap. It was bonkers. So we were actually another 5 minutes, and it would have got into interesting racing. He did amazingly. So yeah, really enjoyed that one actually.
It was a close race and a good end to the GT Cup Championship. Just sum it up, and you know, we spoke to you earlier on yesterday, but sum it up the whole season.
Interesting. Yeah, we've just been consistent, really. You know, compared to everybody else. I don't think we've had a DNF once, and that was the name of the game, really. All year. Even when we got actually hit here last time, we tried to get it in and just get the car out and just get some points. So it's been enjoyable.
Yeah. GT3 champions, congratulations, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the season, and thanks for chatting to us as always. Right, where's Amber gone? I think Amber's...
Piers, I am actually behind you over here, joined by Jason Hughes. So you must be elated with that. And as Mark just mentioned, it's the 5th time winning. So how do you feel?
Fantastic. It's great to win it again. We've had a bit of a tough year, but it's good to get there in the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a little bit tough with just a few little errors here and there, but you always overcome it as a team. Where do you find that morale?
Just got a great team. Great team. Great girls and boys back at the factory. Just a good team. Really, really good team.
It is true, but obviously you're being the head of the team. Obviously it starts with you, so clearly you're doing something well to keep in the team standings.
I wouldn't say that much.
I'm sure. And then talk to me about the cars and how they've been performing. Obviously the drivers have been really good. I'm sure you're happy with them. But in terms of the cars, any upgrades for next year?
No, sticking with the same cars, I think. It's just been tough with the Evo. We've struggled with it most of the year. We've got there, we think, and then this weekend we've had a tough Friday, Saturday. Changed the car tonight, last night, sorry. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Just moving over slightly. So do you think you'll be joining us again next season then?
I hope so. There's always 6.
Okay, fab. Thank you so much for chatting with us, Jason. Obviously, it's been an amazing season for Orange Racing.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank
Brilliant.
you.
Congratulations. So we might as well wander ourselves down towards the podium. I think there's a rogue Mark Werrell. Mark, what a season it's been, eh?
It's been a brilliant season. Year on year, GT Cup seems to serve it up, and yet again, 2022 was a great year. 2023, we've probably seen slightly fewer cars in it, but when your championship still goes down to the last race, that goes to show that it's a difficult championship to win.
Competitiveness is, why it keeps bringing people back, I suppose.
Yeah, I think so. We see new teams already expressing interest for next year, as Chris Haynes alluded to on the start line. GTH is looking really positive for 2024. We're going to see a few of these teams returning next year as well. New drivers coming in all the time. Tom Empson having come in late on in the season, Callum Davis having come in late on in the season, Sai Sanjay coming in, and all of these drivers that don't know GT Cup, and some of them don't even know the circuits, and they're quick.
They are quick, and there's been a lot of highlights through this year. We've had some great races. We had a great race this morning, and even that pit stop race. But what are some highlights from you, Mark?
I think for me, some of the battles in Group GTH. I've alluded to it in commentary a few times. It just seems to be the most populous group that we have, so it's got more numbers than anything else, and therefore by very nature it's ever more difficult to try and win in it. But I also think, just seeing people like Patrick Collins come in and do what he's done this weekend, that's a bit of a highlight for me, because he's driven a car he's never driven before and has come in, and until I said he's not put a wheel wrong, he hadn't put a wheel wrong.
He really didn't put a wheel wrong, did he?
And we are meant to see more cars, especially joining Group GTH next year, as Chris Haynes mentioned beforehand, didn't he, Mark? So I'm sure you're pretty excited for that, because it is a very competitive category.
It is, yeah, and we've already seen the new McLaren Arturas come out this year. You look at Aston Martin have recently announced that they're going to produce another iteration of car and are likely to be probably releasing that in 2024 as well. So I think Group GTH, as is motorsport generally, an evolving thing. So will we see a McLaren 570 out next year? I doubt it, because it's old hat now, but we'll see more Arturas and we'll see more of the new gen cars coming in.
And also, I've got to ask you, Mark, how have you found it with your new presenter lineup? Give us a few words, come on.
Oh, that puts me on the spot. It's been great fun, as is always the case. It's about coming in and doing what we do and enjoying it. And I think we've gelled as a team again, haven't we?
We have. We love you, Funkle Mark.
Funkle Mark.
That's his nickname for everyone watching. I don't really know my second highlight of the season, to be honest, Piers, because with the Mosler, that was my one, to be honest. Morgan Short taking the victory, but another one for me, I guess maybe a few Orange Racing wins, because they've just been fantastic as a team working together.
They do. They enjoy that. They're enjoying themselves as well, because I know I was chatting to them yesterday, and they had a good time last night, and I'm sure after the team championship they'll have a good time this evening as well.
And it is a really close-knit team as well. You can tell that they've got that camaraderie, that banter between them all as well, and that's been there for donkey's years now with Simon Orange and the teams that he's raced with.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully they'll be back again next year to fight on. I think Patrick Collins potentially will be back in another GT3 car if he possibly can be.
I wouldn't imagine that he'd want to be in anything else other than the GT3 car. He's been an absolute star this year. It's been a pleasure to see him out in that car. What a way for him to cap off the season.
Brilliant. Yeah. And I think we're going to have, why not grab a quick last word, Chris? We grabbed you before the race. Good end to the season. I think that was a nice way to end the whole season, I suppose.
I hope so.
And it was also fitting. I thought that JMH, of course, they won the race, and then that sort of helped them to win the team championship as well.
Quite possibly, but you have to forgive me. I haven't actually been able to watch the race. I've been busy behind back house, sorting lots of other stuff out. So I always look forward to watching the race later.
Well, you've got the street.
Then I can examine your commentary and Mark's commentary and just sort of make some notes later on. So forgive me. I don't actually know what's happened. I turn up at these podiums, and this is the first time I actually know where people come. So forgive me.
Well, we can watch the race back on Facebook later on. Of course, a lot of you will be watching there. I think we're going to hopefully grab the podium.
Grab some drivers. I think it'll be great. And obviously the podium is starting now. Something that we don't really show on the GT Cup, because then we end the live stream there. But it's great to get the reactions. If you're down at any GT Cup races, this is where you want to be. It's amazing. All the teams gather, all the drivers gather, and obviously the atmosphere down here is amazing. So it'll be great to talk to some of the drivers and see some of the podium reactions.
Yeah, it was a good fight in all the groups as well. Group GTC once again. It's great to see Dan and Graham back again. They had another strong result this weekend. I think they're in here. Do you want me to try and split it?
Because we've got quite a group of drivers. Yeah. I think we might just tackle it all, to be honest, Piers. If we can get in there and interrupt some of the groups. I'm going to take some people away. Sam, I think we'll speak to you first. We'll take them off one by one. How was that for you then? Obviously, you've raced in GT Cup before, and you didn't go around telling everyone that you're a champion in GT Cup as well. So how have you found it this weekend?
Yeah, really good fun. That race then sort of made the weekend. I came out the pits and they said it's a 40-second gap. And I was like, oh, it's sort of game over. But then started taking out chunks, and on the final corner, the final lap, we made the overtake, which was mega. So really enjoyable last race, and sort of made up for the other 3 before. Charlotte's done really well all weekend, and sort of found a lot of time. So hopefully we can do it again.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think you'll be back for any more races next year? Perhaps maybe racing with Charlotte or someone else?
I hope so. You know, it'd be nice to be back out here. I always enjoy the championship when I come, so you know, it's a bit different to Europe, but I still love it here.
And it's great to have a Scouser with us because they're quite rare in the motorsport world, aren't they? We're both half Scousers. Thank you so much for chatting with me, though, Sam. You've done great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, the podium's going on in the background. Patrick Collins picking up a trophy there. But I thought I'd grab a quick word with Dan Dazil before he jumps on the podium. Dan, another winning Group GTC with you and your father.
Oh, we didn't win GTC. Sam won GTC.
Sorry, my mistake. No, sorry. You've had a good weekend, of course, a couple of wins this weekend. It's got to be a good way to finish the year.
Yeah, really good. It was an amazing race. It was so good. We knew Sam was going to be quick, and it was I had to get in first stint and just get as far ahead as I possibly could. And it was so good.
What happened to the car? It didn't seem like everything was quite...
I liked it. We basically put my settings on, and Dad doesn't like those as much. So we thought that was the strategy: get as far ahead on my settings, and then see how Dad goes. And it worked out. It was quicker than it would have been, but not quite.
So margins are so fine, though, aren't they, Graham?
Yeah, I mean, we had to put new pads in, so Dan was limited at the beginning with new pads. I mean, not much, but it all counts. And then I was on his settings, and I just struggle a bit with it. And if I get it a little bit sideways, you know, whereas Dan can't drive as fast on my settings, but we calculated it was going to be the better way. And, well, no, what can we say? It was right up to the last corner. So
it was so close. But again, very close racing. We're just seeing the Group GTH podium in the background. But congratulations once again. It was a good weekend, and hopefully you enjoyed yourself.
I did very much so. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Graham. Amber.
I have brought Stephen Moulton over with me, so talk to me about that. Was a little unfortunate, wasn't it, in that race?
Yeah, look, I don't really know what happened. I can't really remember, but I think, you know, I went to the inside. Somebody's come into the middle in front of Dave, and we've had a touch and have it the wall, but not the weekend finish we wanted. But we've won the GT8 Championship, so we're all right, and we've come first and second as a team, so that's great as well.
Exactly, you can hold on to that, can't you? And will we see you back in the championship next year, perhaps?
Maybe, we'll just have to see. I think one of the things we've got to do is get a few more cars. We've had more cars at this round than we've had through the season, so if we can get to 8 or 10 cars, then yeah, if not, we might venture into something else yet.
Yeah, it's been such a strong battle, especially in Group GTH, hasn't it? So how have you found that? You sort of like the competitiveness going through this category?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've got is we're AM. We're not AM Pro, so we've been up against the pros and they've come at me in so many races, so overall it's been good. It's been a good championship this year.
Honestly, it's been amazing watching you, so thank you so much. Not the weekend end that we wanted, but you're still so many positives to take from this weekend. Thank you so much, Stephen. Lovely to have a chat there. Unfortunate for them, obviously, with the little spin-off, but also Ed Bridle and David Frankland as well. That was very unfortunate because we saw at Donington Park there was also a bit of a collision there. So not the weekend that they wanted either, but so many positives to take when you come here and you're learning how to use the car and be in this atmosphere.
Yeah,
and great to see the podium.
Yeah,
as well.
Of course, and it's worth mentioning, of course, our overall champion Paul Bailey won the championship. Don't know if I can see him around here. No, it would have been good to get a word, but I don't think he's actually around anywhere we can see him. So, you know, overall champion of the season, Paul Bailey, team's champions JMH. Hey, you know, it's been a great season, and we're looking forward to next year as well. If you guys want to come back, and then it would be great to have watch the stream as you have done this year.
I know it's been such a great season, our first season in the GT Cup Championship, and it's just been absolutely jam-packed. So if you want to stay in tune with all the action, go to gtcup.co.uk and you can find everything on there. Also go to our Facebook channel because we will have videos and live streams from the year on there. But it's been amazing. I've enjoyed it, Piers. I know you've enjoyed it, but any last words before we end this?
I think it's been a great season. I've really loved being part of it. It's my first foray into sort of GT racing in any kind, really, and I've loved it. I've loved being part of the series, and I think the drivers have enjoyed it. Hopefully you, the viewers at home, have enjoyed it. If you have, and you know, let us know if you've enjoyed the season in the comments, or drop us a like on the live stream, because that always helps things. And you can come to the circuits in person, and maybe even if you want to drive, then have a look on that GT Cup website as well, and you can find out how to get involved there.
Honestly, it's been amazing. So thank you to all the teams, drivers, everyone here at the GT Cup Championship. And I'm sure the 2024 season will be absolutely jam-packed like it has been this year. So we'll see you then.